guys, welcome to the ThinkSports Podcast. Today we have a great episode. It's about sports entrepreneurship. Our guest today is Aamir. He's going to talk to us about a company he owns called Millennial Sports. He's also going to talk to us about his life that surrounds sports, his coaching experience, his sports management, and just how he got into all of this. And so, why don't we talk about your background first? Let's talk about sports management, what pushed you to do it, and how it's helped you in years to come.
Hi guys, thanks for having me firstly. But honestly, growing up, I always knew I came from a privileged background, and there's no point denying it. I knew for a fact I didn't have to struggle. I knew for a fact I didn't have to do the engineering as much as my parents wanted me to do it. But it was never like you have to do it to help the family per se. So I could. My parents never bothered me, so I could do what I wanted. So I left to do my undergrad in the US, and I did economics and sports management, which is one of the only countries that allow you to do a dual degree. And economics was honestly a backup degree. So it was always a fallback option. If nothing works out, I have economics, and sports management is there, which would be ideal. But having said that, I'm from a privileged background. I knew for a fact that if I am working, I mean, obviously I'm going to work. When I am working, I'd rather put in those 16 hours, 17 hours a day, but do what I really like rather than doing those 8, 6, 7 hours behind a desk and I'm unhappy every time I come back home. And sports was something that has just stayed constant with. I started playing cricket when I was about 10. I played for 4 years. I moved to tennis for 4 years. And then football has been in my life since I've been 15. And I've just, through college, through Calcutta, I've just tried to do a little bit of everything in sport, get to know more people, build a little bit of a network. And I'm not the greatest with, I can never be the shameless, go up to someone and be like, hey, I'm Aamir, I would love a job kind of person. But I'd work. And then they just remember you because you worked. And that makes most of the difference.
Right. It's interesting that you say that because all of us are pretty much in the same boat. I was also an economics student, and now I'm going to go do sports management. And I think it's the love of sport that you're just like I don't see myself behind a corporate job. So I'm sure a lot of people will kind of relate to that sentiment and be like, okay, we have a fallback in whatever other degree or whatever other studies, but this is what I want to do and maybe pursue it full time if possible. So let's talk about you worked at High Life when you came back from America, right? From your sports management degree. So why don't you talk to us about High Life, what it is, what it does as a company, and what you did for them?
I actually, right after undergrad, I moved to Cape Town for about 4 months where, so I didn't want to come back and then directly get into a job. So I wanted like a kind of small, break plus work. So I was actually in Cape Town for 4 months where I was training kids between 5 to 12. So for 4 months, I was just having football coaching sessions, and it was a place called Sporting Chance, which wanted an intern per se, but it was also, after a couple of weeks, they said, okay, you can run your own classes. So I used to have about 20 kids and I used to have my own football sessions. For kids below 5, I used to have fitness sessions. So I think that was to me, that was the most important part in the stepping stone of getting to where I am, because I realized the minute you can communicate with kids, the minute you can outlay what you want to express to kids and they understand you fully, you can communicate to anybody else in the world. So I genuinely thought that the communication between a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and they can understand exactly what drill I want, they can understand the purpose of that drill, then I am articulate enough to explain to anybody from a 5-year-old to an 8-year-old. So I think Sporting Chance in Cape Town was one of the best things that has happened to me. But while I was in Cape Town, I'd spoken to High Life because I had interned with them, I think in 2015 once for 3 months, and I knew the people there. So I said, I'm coming back to Calcutta because I don't want to stay in the US right now. So is there a possibility? They said, yeah, we need someone. And it worked out. I came back in August, and by 1st September, I was working again. So there was very little lag between both the jobs. So again, High Life that's the beauty of, at least to me, the beauty of a small sports management company is that there are about 10 people, right? And you'd have a boss, you'd have a vice president, and then there are 8 other people who are, okay, yeah, your designations could be different, your pay scale may be different, but you all do the same thing.
Yeah. So I really like that you said that, because again, I'm relating it to my life where I'm considering my options. I want to do a bit of everything and then kind of narrow
Hmm.
down
Correct.
what I think I'm the best at or what I enjoy the most and things like that. But you talk about coaching in Cape Town. You talk about doing a bit of coaching when you were here.
Correct.
Is that I understand that you have coaching licenses.
Correct.
So is that when you decided to do it, or was this during your degree that you decided that you wanted to maybe explore the field of coaching and then hence got your coaching
I
license?
did want to do my coaching license in the US, but then they had a little bit of, you have to be a resident, then you have to get approval, you have to get something signed from the embassy, and I just said it's not worth the hassle. But I got lucky with Cape Town, where I actually got experience in learning how to coach because I'd never done it before. Obviously, I'd seen it and I thought I could do it, but then I've actually never been the only person who's handling a session. Once I came back to Calcutta, I coached Xavier's and Shrishi Academy for about a year and a half. Xavier's the middle school, so the kids, and again Shrishi Academy was again middle school. And 2018 December, I think I finally did my license. So it's very weird that I was actually a coach before my license, and then in 2018 they made it like you had to have a license to coach. So now you have to have at least a E. I have a D currently. You have to have at least an E license to coach any form of kids, and D goes all the way up to college, and E is obviously baby league.
So,
Correct.
can you talk to us a little bit about Millennium Sports? I understand that you own this company. Basically, what we want to understand through this is what are the avenues that are available in the sports industry. I mean, like you get your degree, let's say in sports management or any other discipline related to sports, but then you're back in India and then you are trying to figure out where you want to work. But a lot of people face this issue that, is it that in terms of financially, is it like that secure a domain for me to pursue? Like, what are the avenues that are available to a graduate right now if I want to venture into sports? So when you talk about Millennium Sports, I want to understand, okay, that this is something you can do on the side that can be revenue generating, and then on the side pursue what you really want to do.
Ideally, if you were just starting from scratch in sports, it's a little tough to generate revenue right after grad school. What I would give advice to people is that just start volunteering. There are at least 8 full, or I think 6 full marathons in Calcutta, for example, and they always need volunteers. And you can just start doing a little bit, just 2 days of work. You get paid maybe $1,000 or $2,000, but you get to know what happens. You have that experience. You get to know the people, and then you become the same person that they want to call over and over again. Again, it's just 1 week's work every year, but at least people know of you. You're on the books, and then it's just someone. Okay, he worked well, and then we want him back. With millennial sports in particular, we realized that there was a dearth of. There are a lot of turfs in Calcutta, 100%, but majority of the turfs are cement based or they're hard. So every time you fall, you're going to cut yourself, or every time you fall, you're going to have a bruise, kind of thing. So we knew that there was a lack of well constructed turf, proper dimensions, proper 6-a-side field, which is better than just having, it'll be long but it'll be narrow, it'll be wide but it'll be short. So which made no sense. You have to play 3-a-side, you have to play 4-a-side. So we knew that there was a need for a well-run facility. We knew there was a need for a high-quality facility, and that is how Millennial Sports as a whole started. So right now, currently, VS Arena, which is in Minto Park, and Turf Air Plaza, which is in Rajarhat, are the two ones that we own together. So Millennium Sports, and it's a team of about 4 people, each of which specialize in their own thing. So we have one person who did his diploma per se in facility management. So now he, for example, which is one avenue that I didn't know till I met him. So he just studied about tartan tracks. He studied about astroturfs. He studied about what layout goes in a badminton court. He studied about what's the height of a net in a volleyball court. So all of that. And now he specializes in synthetic courts. So if somebody wants a tender, for example, saying that, okay, I want to convert my football field into a proper astroturf, or I have a parking space and I want to convert that into a volleyball court for the kids in my school, what do I do? And he's the perfect person because he has contacts in everything, and that is just through his facility management course, which is one of the avenues in Millennial Sports. We don't want to just run a facility, we can just also just construct the facility and take a fees for whatever for our consultancy for that. Another avenue is obviously the facility management. We're talks or in talks to open another one. So maybe by the end of this year, we'll have another turf. So that's always there. But personally, I think turfs in Calcutta are starting to saturate. There are a lot of turfs in Calcutta, but that's there. And apart from that, there are the easiest source of revenue, in my opinion, if you've grown up in Calcutta, if you've grown up playing sports in Calcutta, whether it's cricket, football, whatever it is, just organize tournaments. Organizing tournaments are hectic, I agree, but it's a day, day and a half, 2 days. And if you've grown up playing, you know people. You put a entry fee, you do your calculations, you do your cost, you realize how much needs to be put as the prize money. And that way you get to know A, the turfs, B, the turf owners, C, you never know who's in a team. Some person could be, an agent who just plays for fun. For example, Anuj Kichlu, he plays for fun. He's a big shot agent. You just might meet him. You can share contact, you can have a conversation with him. And it's a nice way to just have constant source of revenue. Every month you can have one tournament each and you make a certain sum, you make a certain sum, you make a certain sum, and then you start making slightly bigger. So that's a very nice start, which is what we want to do with our turfs as well eventually, but we would rather have it to be a league rather than a 2-day thing. So it would be like a 4-month thing. Every weekend you come and play. But because of COVID, we haven't been able to do it right now, but that is the eventual plan.
I think this is
So what I like about what you just said is it focuses on using your network to build a network, right? So you're using
Correct.
the fact that you have grown up in Kolkata, the fact that you have played sport all your life to kind of keep expanding that base while earning a certain amount of money. But that network essentially is going to act as the biggest resource for you to tap into a bit further down the line. So while you are making a certain amount of money organizing these tournaments, the contacts you make will be invaluable.
Correct.
Exactly like you talk about the person who did facility management. I think these are great people that you get to meet, and I really like that. That is the idea behind all of these. Like,
there are very few. There's another guy who I know who works on. He adds science to sports, so he'll put sensors on every body part of you, and then he'll put a webcam, and then he'll measure, he'll make you do 10 jump squats, for example, and then by the 7th jump squat, he sees that your form is off. You're jumping half an inch lesser. So there are things like that which are so untapped because in the US it's there, obviously, but he used his coding. He was a coder. That's what he did as his undergrad, and he used his coding to make this technology, and now he's just trying to talk to size. Similarly with the facility management, of course, every school has a tartan track in the US, every school has a tartan track in the UK. But in Calcutta, there's just one. So when we did our athletic meet, we had the rule to be affiliated by AIFF, you have to do it on a tartan track. And our only option was Sai. That's the only tartan track that we have in Calcutta. So there are so much that is untapped that people are struggling. There are so many people that just want to play, but they either train on sand or they train on grass or they train on, terrible fields. So facility management is one very, very good thing. Another very good example is 2 years back. I don't know right now how many there are. 2 years back, there were just 2 certified marathon measurers. So they would have a cycle. So what they do is they go on a cycle and they have a ticker on the cycle and they measure exactly 42.87, I think, something. I could be wrong. And they measure it right to the T. And there are just 2 people who are certified with that. And this guy comes just for the weekend, earns bucket loads of money, and then goes back home. And that's his job. Every weekend he just does this. And he has a monopoly because he's just the only one of the 2 people who are doing it. Similarly, with rugby, there's one Asian certified rugby official from India. So there is a lot that is happening in India, but people just don't know. We just do it, watch a para tournament, okay, yeah, he does it. But the minute you certify it or officiate it, which is always there as an option, but we just don't think it's worth doing it. The minute you do that and you want to legitimize something, it just increases your revenue system, increases your credibility, increases the clientele that you can possibly have.
Yeah. So, what you were talking to us just before we actually got to recording, where you said a lot of millennial sports is self-sustaining. It runs in the background, you guys have people that will manage it, and essentially it just functions without the most intervention on your part. So
Mhm.
why don't you talk to us about what you do mainly on a day-to-day basis? What do you spend your time on?
So right now I'm trying to get in touch with a few NGOs because I have a couple of things in the background, but I still feel like I have a lot of free time. I coach a couple of, not couple, I coach a bunch of girls in the mornings. So that's about 3 times a week. Apart from that, obviously Millennial is there. Like you said, it's a well-run machine. We have a back-end team, so they handle social media, they handle the booking website. If there is booking conflicts, they do it themselves. So that is there. So we don't really need to get involved in it. My strength or Shatadru's strength, who's my partner, would be to get, let's say if some famous personality, I want them to come and play, or like a professional football, I want them to come and play just to increase a post or to boost my credibility or my turf. Him and I will do that. I would do handle a little bit of social media. That's what I do. Apart from that, during the transfer window in football per se, which can start as early as like April to August when it shuts because that's when the initial process starts. I help an intermediator. So he's basically the middleman, for the lack of a better word, between foreign agents and the various football clubs in India, mainly the ISL clubs, right? So what he does is he knows the various CEOs or the CFOs of the ISL clubs, whether it's Goa or Kerala or Chennai, and they give him a requirement saying that I have spot for 4 foreigners. This is the type of player I want. I want a box to box, or I want a target man, or I want a winger who cuts in. Those kind of requirements, and he then forwards it to the various different player agents that he knows all across the world, whether it's Brazilian, Spanish, Portuguese, or whatever it is. And then they take a week, they curate a list, they give him, okay, these are the 15 people based on the salary that you've given me and the location that who are interested in coming. So then what he does is he gives me this list of 15, 20, 50, however many it is. And it's my job to first look through all of them and then give him a feedback based on which he sends it to the respective clubs. So before he doesn't get feedback from me, he does not send it because he does not want to send any random player that's been sent without a proper background check. Obviously, in in like a Premier League, for example, what they would do is they would watch about 12, 15, 16 hours of their clippings, how they play, what their style is. They'd watch them live, but again, that's a little harder when he, for example, plays in Portugal's second division or if he plays in Malta. It's a little tough for me to watch a live game of them, right? So my first step would be, okay, see their stats. How many minutes did they play? How many starts did they have? Have they been able to sustain themselves, whether they've lasted 90 minutes or not? Then I go to see, okay, he played from 2018, but there's no record after 2018. What happened in that 1 year period? Why were they relaxed? So I tell the intermediator to talk to the agent saying, okay, what happened in that year? Why is there no record? I look at recurring injuries. If he's had continuous knee injuries, I look for news articles. If he's had any dispute in the club, whether that his contract has been terminated, whether he'd be a bad influence in the dressing room, anything that I can find. So I type his name and then we play in Thailand and Thailand. And once they pass all of that, that's when I go to the next step. So I don't fully trust YouTube videos because YouTube videos are obviously their best bits. It's 12 minutes of what they do best, right? So my biggest job is the filtration to see whether or not he's played, whether or not he's fit, whether or not he played last season, whether or not he can. And you have a sense of gauge. You understand that if he scored 5 goals in Spanish League 2, he'll do fine in ISL because the levels, Spanish League 2 would be slightly higher. But the levels would be similar. If he's done well in League 1 in in the English League, he'd be fine here. If he's played in the Portuguese League, he'd be fine here, right? The only problem would be Scandinavian players coming to India because of the humidity. So then once I look at the video, I don't look at him scoring goals or him defending or him playing that pass. I look at the mistakes that he's done. For example, I look at whether he could have made a better decision. I look at what type of runs he made, whether he makes late runs. So then I understand if he's a box to box, if he's a number 6, if he's a number 8, is he a number 10, what type of forward he is, if does he drop deep, does he play target man. So all of that, based on that, I give him feedback saying, okay, in my opinion, he fits the bill in what exactly that they want, and I think he could work. And then of course, there is a once I send it to him, he sends it to the clubs, and then there's a massive filtration. So each club would have their own scouting team. So first, the CEO would send it to his scouting team, and the scouting team would come back to him and say, okay, I'd give him a 8 on 10. Majority of clubs have a rating system of about, if it's above 7.5, then I send it to the coach. So once the scouting teams tell them, okay, it's 8 on 10, then the CEO would send it to the coach. Then the coach would see him, analyze him, and be like, okay, yeah, this fits perfectly for me. And then he comes back, and then it comes back to the intermediator, then the foreign agent. So it's about a 6-7 step process, which takes close to a month and a half sometimes, unless you're panic buying. Then it happens in a day. But
Right.
it's a very, I've been very impressed with the last couple of years. The ISL have become very tedious with the way they scout and sign players.
What's your opinion on the role of numbers and statistics, in the scouting system? Is it like taking more of a prominent role in how people perceive players rather than, actually going to a match and watching a game? Because, you get a very different idea. You look at the numbers,
Correct.
you look at the number of passes. Of course, that paints a very different picture. Okay, it looks like this guy is a really great midfielder, but he could just be in the not putting, not too many people are putting too much pressure on the player. So, that's why the numbers are high. That's just an example. So, how do you think it's kind of diluting the value of actually a player performing on the game itself and the chemistry that he has with other players and what he brings to the dressing room and stuff like that? What is your opinion on this? Is scouting heavily reliant on analytics these days?
Like I said, it definitely works as a very good first filtration point. It works as a very good, first step. Okay, green flag, green flag, green flag. Okay, he has pass completion rate. His forward passes are more than his backward passes. 75% of his passes are more than 6 yards or 10 yards. So those definitely play a role in the analytics. So you know the type of player that he is. But then when it comes to, because essentially this came from, baseball. That's where the term started, the Moneyball term. But then baseball essentially is a one-on-one sport. It's a team sport, but it really isn't. Cricket is a one-on-one sport. The bowler is playing against the batsman. You are heavily dependent on how well you do in that current scenario. Football is very different in the sense of you are dependent on the 10 people around you. Whether you can only complete a pass if your teammate is free. You can only complete a pass if you are not pressed. You can only complete a pass if the ball fed to you was on your stronger foot, for example. So it is heavily dependent on the people around you, which is why stats may not give you the clearest of pictures, but gives you a nice initial picture. But it does not give you as much of a clear picture as it comes to a baseball or a cricket or a tennis, which is a one-on-one individual sport.
Another question that I have is when you talk about the scouting system, you talk about South America, Europe, maybe where stats are available. But what about lower leagues of India? There's a lot of talent down there as well, but the data isn't available as much, right? So I just want to know how common it is for scouting networks to go down to those leagues and look for talent at home rather than venturing to other countries. And when does it play a role that okay, there is information here, so I can trust this market more? And also European leagues are, there's more competition, of course, those things are there, but there's a lot of talent here which can be available for cheaper. And also developing Indian football is another aspect that is, the most important thing about ISL is to develop Indian football, right?
Correct.
So how do you go about that? When you're in the scouting system, how do you give it more prominence, those levels?
Honestly, we focus on just international players. So, but ISL is now trying to reduce it. It was 6, now they're reducing it to, or I think it was 5, and now they're reducing it to 4 in the starting lineup. So they are trying to, from the next season will be 4 if I'm not mistaken. So they're trying to depend more on the Indian or the local talents. But like you said, yeah, there's very little data on League 2, for example, or CFL. You have to physically go and watch those games. And I've gone for a few CFL games, and you'd be surprised to see the number of independent agencies that actually go for CFL games just to look for players to talk to them after the game. Because when a kid is 18 years old and he's playing for CFL, he's going to talk to you if you say, okay, I want to sign you as an agency. He'll be flattered that somebody wants to sign you for an agency. Yeah, what you can offer to him as an agent That depends entirely on the people you know, the network that you have. So that's a different avenue. But as something as simple as the Durand Cup, I went to the Durand Cup in 2019 in Salt Lake Stadium, and I saw at least 6 different agents who were individual agents who just came to watch the games to just see who's good, who's not good. So that if you are serious about it, if you're honest about it, clubs are not that hard to get in touch with. It's a step-by-step process, of course. You need to start with I League 2. Payment is not the highest again, but then it's better than doing what you love. I mean, it's better than playing football, which is something that you love, rather than doing a corporate job. So it is definitely happening. I League and ISL now have all their data in Scout. They have all their data in what's the other one? There's another Scout-esque app which is used in India, and which is very good. So if I, for example, type in Ankit Mukherjee in Scout, they'll give me pass completed. So they'll give me 8-second clips of every pass that he's completed, and just keep going on loop. So I'll know, for example, that Ankit Mukherjee has done this. So I League and ISL have genuinely started getting better because Scout has bought their rights, but the problem with I League 2 is they're not even televised on television. You have to watch it online, right? So there's nowhere that you can buy rights to make that data as well. You need to get to know the online platforms and the distributors and then do it. So till that is not legitimized, you can't really have data. You'll have to physically go there and be present. Which is why I know a couple of agents who have a team in Meghalaya, for example. So there was the Meghalaya League. They have a team in Kerala, for example. There was the Kerala League. So that's how they build a database and then scout over 3, 4, 5, 6 games and then take a gamble. It's always, when it comes to human beings, it's always a gamble. You can never be sure whether or not he'll make it big or not.
So I had one very simple question. From all the conversations I've had with people that are interested, especially in football, here abroad, that see themselves working in football, exactly what you talk about in the work you're doing, seems like everyone wants to analyze games, scout players.
Mm-hmm.
Right? These are things people actively want to do, don't know how to do them, how to get to these positions. Mm-hmm. So the question I would ask you is to maybe spend like a minute talking on how you got to be in a position where you are able to do something that so many people wanted. Mm-hmm. Is it because of your networking? Is it because of your scouting? Is it because of your coaching licenses? Maybe just talk about how you got
there. When I started it was because we started it in High Life. There was me and another guy who used to talk to a lot of agents, and we started in High Life. And we'd literally go to transfermarket.com. There would be a list of agents. We would not look at the big guys. So we'd never message the agent of Pogba, for example. It makes no sense. We'd filter it to highest market value of a mil. And then we just send mails. There are certain countries that you know and I know that India is heavily dependent on. Like Spanish come, the Nigerians come, the South Americans come, the Argentinians, the Brazilians. So we just made a list of, okay, these are the type of agents that we want to talk to. And we just Google search, find their email address and send an email. So, okay, these are the requirements that I have. Do you have someone that could do? And then majority of them don't reply, obviously. But then there are 15, 20, 30% that do. And that's how your network builds. For example, the guy I was telling you who I'm currently helping, he's been doing it for 4 or 5 years now. So he's built a network in the last 2 years. It's not a 1-year thing. It takes a while. For the first 2 years, not a single club replied to him because we were like, who is this random guy? Why should I ever trust him? But then he did it every year. He said, okay, I have this player. If you want mandate, I can show you mandate saying that, okay, he's officially my player. So that's how you build trust. But recently, having said that, AIFF have finally started their scouting program. So it's a 7-day online course. It's something I haven't done yet, which I tried, but both times they said it's full. So it's definitely high in demand. People are definitely doing it. So that is another way of getting into it. You get on the AIFF newsletter. So they send you mails as well. So that is a very, very good start to doing it. It obviously does not guarantee you a job. It obviously does not guarantee you something as exciting as this, because generally is exciting, especially watching your guys play for Chennai or Kerala or what, you just watch them play. It's very exciting. But it is definitely a start. It is definitely something that would at least put you one step ahead of everybody else because you have that certification. When you apply, people will be like, okay, you have a certification. And now there are, every year, clubs are expanding the scouting team. Every year, clubs are expanding the analytical team. So there is scope, but again, it's a very narrow market. But it does you no harm to just do the course. It's, I think, a 7 or a 14-day course. So you should just, whoever wants to do it, just do it. That's always the advice. Just go for it. It will never deter you. It will always put you, it would always give you some benefit of the other.
I think the idea is it puts you on a platform, right? And then it's how you like. It'll never guarantee you a job, but that's for you to do. It puts you at a level where you can kind of have interactions that will get you to a decent position. So I think that's great advice. But just to conclude, I want you to just talk to someone like I want you to give advice to people who are confused about sport, as we all have been at some point. Confused about what they can do if they're planning on doing a sports management degree, whether it be a bachelor's or master's, if they're planning on starting a sports startup like you have in Millennial Sports. What advice would you maybe give yourself that would give yourself before going to college or whatever? If you had advice to give, what advice would it be?
I'll be collectively, I would think I started working in the sporting industry at the age of 20, right from college. It was something as simple as I would get a floor plan a day before an event, and they would say, I need 10 tables and 20 chairs in this alignment. And my job was just to do that. And it was the most tedious job in the world. But, it was just, it had a sense of progression. You could become, from that, you could become an event manager, then you could become the event leader. So then you directly talk to the clients instead of, you'd become the one who hands out the floor plan rather than the one who's executing the floor plan. So it is something which seems, it's an investment. Everything in life is an investment. It is, you cannot start if your ideal job is an IMG, you cannot start in IMG. It would never happen. Very few people below the age of 30 have ever got into IMG, and that's with 10 years of experience. So it is a step-by-step process. It is the internships. You may have to do 3 internships unpaid, but you're just doing it because you want the experience, you want to learn. It may not even be the exact field you want to get into, but at least now you know what not to do. Even if it's not a positive thing, you at least know, okay, this is not what I want anymore. So, okay, I don't have to worry about this side of the world anymore. So it is, advice for me is always volunteer, look for tournaments to volunteer, look for events to volunteer, look for national meets to volunteer, because everybody loves free labor. And if you can give free labor and be honest about the things that you do, it can never go wrong. Yes, it sometimes does not feel worth it when you're spending 12 hours the day before an event, you're not sleeping, but if you're serious about it, you just have to put yourself out there, you have to do it. And it does normally work out. If you probably have worked in the sporting industry a little bit, you've conducted interviews with a few people through this podcast, you've seen the same people over and over again. It's nobody new that is coming. It's the same guys who you saw at the age of 16 who are volunteering. Now they've got a job. It's because they started early. It's because it's the same pool of people who are just more serious about it. Not okay, I did once, this was my experience, I really enjoyed it and that's it. But having grown up in the sporting industry, I've seen the same people. It's just that some are more senior than the other, some are higher paid than the other, but the pool remains almost the same.
I completely agree with you. I think that's fantastic advice. Go out, work as much as you can, do as many things as you can, figure out what you like, what you don't like, and that should help. But I think with that we come to the end of our episode. Thanks so much, Aamir, for joining us. It was really educational. I learned a lot about the scouting system. Loved learning about your company. To our viewers, thanks a lot for checking us out. You can find us on our social media platforms on Instagram. Our website is www.thinksports.co.in. For more podcasts like this, you can head over there, and we're on all major podcast streaming websites. Anyway, thanks a lot, Aamir, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Hope to
Thanks,
see you
Rick and Rana.
again soon.
Thanks, Aamir.
Perfect. Thank you.